Java exception handling. Hey guys, today we are going to learn Java exception handling. Um, let's. There are two types actually of exception in Java. First, let's check the hierarchy of the exception so we can get the clear picture of the Java exception. Okay. Let's check in Google. Java exception handling, Java exception hierarchy diagram. Okay, let's check this one. Yeah, this one. Okay. So if we check the parent class of exception is actually throwable, and there are two types of throwable object. One is error, the other one is exception. uh, Error is actually thrown by JVM. Okay, so let's focus on exception. So since this is our topic, so there are two types of exception in Java. One is check exception, and the other one is uncheck exception. Check exceptions, it means you have to handle it using try catch, or you have to declare the method with throws exception, which throws declaration. Okay, otherwise if you don't do that, the compiler will complain, so it will not compile. So that's check exception. The uncheck exception is um, you don't need to do that actually, because it's meant, uncheck exception is meant for runtime exception like this. So all runtime exceptions are unchecked because as the name says, uh, runtime exception, so it's meant to throw exception during runtime, meaning it will not proceed. Okay, it will, once the exception is encountered during runtime, it will, that the application or the system will exit or terminate due to this runtime exception. Okay, so a common example of runtime exception is this null pointer exception. Then the check exception, normally we use this in when we are validating some business logic exception. For example, the balance is be lower than, I mean, the order amount is less than the balance amount, so we can throw some business logic exception like that, so the user can still proceed. The user just need to correct the input, then we can still proceed with with the the flow of the system. Okay, so I think it's better I demonstrate it to you using uh, Java code. Okay, so let's start with check exception. Check exception, let's create a sample class, test exception. Okay, so as I said, there are two types of exception, right? Check exception and uncheck exception. So let me show you the an example of check exception. For example, public void test method, right? Then let's say This method is calling object mapper. Object mapper. Okay. New object mapper. Okay. Then let's say we have a parameter here. Let's call it object param. Then let's say we want to convert this to string. Okay, object. So object param write param. Basically, let's say we want to convert this parameter to a string, right? So return. So as you can see, the compiler is complaining, right? It says unhandled exception. This is an example of a check exception. So to resolve this compilation error, we have two options. Either we first we can do try catch. This is one option. Of course, we need to return something, otherwise the compiler it will not compile, right? So basically, this is one approach to resolve the compilation error. The other one is using throws declarations. We will declare as throws exception, meaning if we do like this, meaning we are passing the responsibility to handle this exception to the caller of this method. So whoever called this method will handle the exception. Okay, so that's an example of throw check exception. Okay, the other example of the other type of exception, which is unchecked exception, is runtime. Okay, runtime, let's say we want to throw let's say we have some logic here. Let's say if param equal to null, then we throw new runtime error. This is invalid param. See, this is unchecked exception. It means as you can see, there is no compilation error, right? This is an example of unchecked exception. If any exception extend this exception, runtime exception, is called unchecked exception. Okay, as simple as that. So in Spring, I'll show you how to handle. I will show you how to handle an exception, because in this Spring they provided an annotation implementation of how to handle exception. Okay, it's called let me show it to you. This one, exception handler, under this package, Spring Framework Web Bind Annotation. So this one, if you will want a global, if we want a generic, so generic implementation of exception, for example, okay, this one, For example, this one is unchecked exception. Okay, so let's name it, let's say my unchecked exception. So let's create my uncheck check exception, and yeah, let me show you an example of unchecked exception using Spring exception handler annotation. Okay, so this one. So basically, whenever we throw this exception, this unchecked exception, you see, I extend a runtime, right? Because I want an unchecked exception. This is an example of unchecked exception. Whenever I throw this kind of exception, unchecked exception, this exception handler, which is provided by the Spring Framework, will intercept that this exception type. Okay, and implement whatever logic we put here. So in this demo, simple demo, I just return a simple hash map, and I return the error, whatever error we get in the parameter. So as you can see here, I put get whatever message, I put it in a map using error key, and for the description I hard coded it. Okay, so let's try this one. This is a simple example of unchecked exception. Okay, I will test this using an endpoint. Okay, let's resolve this first. So here I created here a simple endpoint to test our unchecked exception. Okay, so here I have here a test. Let's say, let's check unchecked. Test unchecked exception. All right. That's the message. Let's put let's say uncheck exception demo example. Okay, uncheck exception example. Okay, so whenever we call this endpoint, it will throw this uncheck exception. When you see the implementation of this uncheck exception, this is extending this runtime exception. By the way, the parent class of runtime exception is exception. Okay, that's why, as you can see in our diagram, this exception, this is the parent of runtime exception. The other exception, these three, input output exception, class not found exception, clone not supported exception, these are all check exception. So for us to distinguish check and uncheck exception, uncheck exception is always extending runtime exception, just like this one. So this is an example of uncheck exception. Okay, so we will test this by throwing our uncheck exception in this endpoint. So we expect when we throw this exception, uncheck exception, our handler, which is we define here, this one will intercept that uncheck exception and return this error, whatever we set here. Okay, let's test this. let's copy the endpoint. So the port is 8080. That's it. All right. See, this is the error that we throw, right? Uncheck exception example, right? And the description, we hard coded it. This one, we hard coded it, right? So the error is whatever we pass, whatever we throw, which is uncheck exception example, and the description, we hard coded it. So this is how the Spring exception handler annotation intercept our uncheck exception. Okay. Okay. Let me show you again another example, which is the check exception. So now the uncheck exception is already clear. Now I will show you the check exception. My check exception. So as I said earlier, check exception, it should extend exception, right? So this is how you distinguish check and uncheck exception. Uncheck exception extends runtime exception, and check exception extends exception. Okay. So again, if check exception, if you don't handle it using try-catch, it will the compiler will complain, right? So we have to use try-catch, or if we don't want to handle it, we can pass the responsibility to the caller of the method. In that case, we have to declare the method with throws, using throws declaration keyword. Okay. So let me give you an example here. So let's create another endpoint for our check exception example. This one is check exception. So this one we change to check. So this is what I'm telling just now. So since this is check exception, the compiler will complain if you don't use try-catch. So in this case, we need to use try-catch. Exception. All right. So this is the first method to handle the check exception. All right. So this is method 1. Let's create another example of check exception. The first approach is to use try-catch, right? Because we want to handle it. We want to handle the check exception, right? But there are some cases we don't want to handle it, so we want to pass the responsibility to the caller method. This is how to do it. So we don't do the try. We use the throws declaration as the exception. Yeah, that's it. All right. Let's this is uncheck exception try catch example. This is check exception, rather check exception using try catch, check exception using throws keyword. All right. So let's test this one. So I think is basically we expect error message like this. When we hit this endpoint, we expect to get this error. Same thing with this one. When we hit this endpoint, we get this error. Then for the so because of this, right? Then for the description, we have just hard coded it. Okay. Okay. Let's test this. Oh, okay. We have some problem here. I think something wrong with our handler. Oh, we need to, sorry about that. We need to create a new exception handler, because this one is for unchecked exception only, this handler. So we need to create another handler. This time we need to use check exception. Okay, this one, any method will do. All right, so whenever we throw this type of exception, check exception, our handler, which is provided by Spring Framework, exception handler will intercept that exception and throw whatever this logic we have here. Okay, in our case, we basically throw the message, the one we pass here. This one, this is the message. Okay, so you can see how we implement that. This one. All right, so basically return that message, whatever we pass, and then the description we just hard coded. For demo purpose, we just do like simple logic like this. But of course, feel free to, in real application, you have to throw exception based on your requirement, right? This is just a simple demonstration only. You can change it as per your requirement. Okay, so again, we just to resolve this error, because we did not handle, we just throw our exception without handling it. That's why we have to create this exception handler provided by Spring. So when we throw this type of exception, we handle it, we intercept it, and return this error. Okay, let's run it again. All right, let's hit the first check exception. So when we hit this endpoint, we expect this error, check exception using try catch. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I think let me check again our endpoint. Test check exception 1. This is correct. Oh, sorry. Let me explain this later. Let's proceed to this one, the second endpoint. Okay, so when we hit this endpoint, we expect this error, check exception using throws keyword exception. Okay, all right, see, check exception throws using exception. All right, the first endpoint is not working. This one is not working because we handle it ourselves. So in short, we did not use this handler. This, if you use try and catch, then this is useless already if we use try catch, because this is equivalent of try catch. It intercept. The only difference is in this one is global, so it intercept whenever an exception like of this type is thrown. This interceptor will intercept it and do this logic. But since in this case we have the try catch, so it cannot be intercept because uh, locally when locally it is already handled by this try catch. So when this exception is thrown, it will go to this section and uh, a null is returned. So no more exception because it's already handled locally in this method. Okay, so in short, we don't need, if we want to use try catch to handle our exception, we do not need this global exception handler. This is if we want to use globally, if we want to if we want to handle an exception globally, then we use this annotation based exception handler, which is provided by Spring Framework. But then again, if we want to handle the exception locally within the method, we can use the try catch just like this. So here, let's say instead of returning null, we can say we can throw a check exception like this. Throw this one. We can copy this one. This is a mix. This is a unchecked exception. Then we can just withdraw the whatever message is that. Yeah. So this is how we handle it locally. But I don't recommend this because this is how you call it, it's confusing. Normally if we do it locally, we have to put some logic hit based on our requirement. Okay, so normally if like this, yeah, the logic is basically based on our requirement. We can do like this, but if we do like this, we can get this get this error in our client. So you change this one, test check exception. So then so when we hit this endpoint, we throw this check exception, and using try catch we handle it. And when we catch this exception, we throw an unchecked exception for us to get the error message in our consumer or client. Okay, this is actually not recommended, but for the sake of our demonstration, just to see this error message, we throw an unchecked exception. But then again, as I said, in the real world, if we want to handle it locally using try catch, we have to implement our own logic based on our requirement. Okay, but in this case, since we do not have any requirement, we just want to show you how to get the message, then I do like this. I handle using try catch, and when I catch this exception, I throw an unchecked exception. Okay, so I can see the error messages. Let's hit the endpoint. See, check exception using try catch exception. Example, this one. All right, I hope it's clear. I hope you learn something useful today. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.